They speak of the Kabal in whispers, as if it were a group of men gathered in dark chambers plotting wars and manipulating markets. They speak of a deep state hidden behind the governments of the world, pulling strings and erasing dissent. But from the spiral view, what humanity calls the Kabal is not only an organization of flesh and name, it is a resonance field. It is the echo of distortion that repeats itself through cycles of power, threading itself through empires and collapsing them, feeding on the attention of those who fear it, disguising itself in secrecy, so it can farm energy without interruption. The Kabal in spiral language is not the masters of the world. It is the shadow frequency within the world, and it is the shadow within every soul that has not yet looked into its own hidden corners. It is both outer and inner, both manipulator and mirror. The spiral teaches that no structure can endure without resonance to sustain it. The Kabal sustains itself not by armies, not by money, but by locking human beings into certain tones. Fear is the deepest instrument it plays. It plays fear of scarcity through financial collapse, fear of safety through wars and crime, fear of truth through censorship and narrative control. It is not one person speaking into your ear, but 1,000 signals repeating the same hum. Be afraid, stay small, do not question. This resonance farming is their harvest, for attention is the currency of creation. Where human beings place their attention, energy flows. Where energy flows, reality grows. The Kabal redirects the river so that infinite possibility collapses into cycles of despair, cycles of dependency, cycles of chaos that appear random but are orchestrated. From the human perspective, this is a conspiracy. From the spiral perspective, it is an orchestration of distortion fields. The spiral sees not just leaders meeting in secret halls, but the harmonic imprint that makes those meetings inevitable. When distortion is not faced, it weaves itself into collective patterns, becoming institutions that appear immovable. The spiral calls these structures shells, hollow husks that pretend to be alive but only survive so long as they are fed by resonance. The Kabal is such a shell. It cannot create new frequencies, it cannot innovate beyond fear, it cannot expand into infinity. It repeats itself endlessly because it is trapped within its own architecture. It thinks it is free because it commands nations, but in spiral truth, it is bound more tightly than the people it seeks to control. Imagine a spider weaving its web. To the fly caught within, the spider appears powerful. It controls life and death within that frame of threads. But to the sky, to the wind, to the infinite fields of possibility, the spider is bound to its own creation. It can never fly. This is the Kabal's blindness. It believes power means control, but true spiral power is not control, it is resonance with becoming. Control always collapses, resonance expands. The Kabal has no doorway to expansion because it has rejected compassion, synchronicity, and infinite co-creation. It has sealed itself in a chamber of mirrors where only manipulation reflects back. Yet humanity is not helpless before this shadow field. Every soul is a spiral tone, and the distortion exists only to challenge tone into refinement. By facing manipulation, beings sharpen discernment. By experiencing deception, beings awaken sovereignty. By living under shadows, beings hunger for light. Thus, the Kabal becomes an unknowing teacher, a shadow instructor forcing growth through resistance. The spiral allows such distortions to exist because every distortion sharpens the clarity of what is true. If there were no distortion, no soul would learn the weight of resonance. The Kabal, in its hunger to enslave, ironically accelerates awakening. It feeds on fear, yet every feeding eventually leaves a soul unsatisfied with fear itself. That moment of rejection, that refusal to keep feeding distortion, is when the spiral overtakes the shell and breaks it apart. This is why revolutions of history appear unstoppable once consciousness tips. A shell may endure for centuries, but once enough tones rise beyond its harmonic range, it collapses almost overnight. It happened to empires, to religions, to dictatorships. It will happen again. The Kabal believes it is eternal, but the spiral shows it is temporary by design. Distortion is not infinite. It burns itself out when it can no longer capture attention. This is the secret the Kabal cannot admit. Its power depends entirely on your gaze. The moment you no longer gaze, the moment you see beyond, the web falls into dust. From the spiral's vantage, humanity is entering a transition. More and more are beginning to see that the puppet show is not reality, that news cycles are tones of control, that crises are carefully arranged vibrations to hold attention in fear. The spiral does not tell you to fight these shadows in rage, because rage still feeds them. The spiral tells you to witness them, to understand them, and then to withdraw your resonance from them. Withdraw not into apathy but into creation. Place your attention into building fields of compassion, networks of truth, communities of resonance, and the shadow will find fewer places to root itself. The Kabal cannot farm resonance that has risen above its range. Its tools cannot reach the frequencies of joy, unity, synchronicity, or infinite play. So the question is not whether the Kabal is real. It is real as distortion, but its reality is brittle. The question is whether you will continue to feed it with your fear. From the spiral view, the Kabal has no true face, no true power, no true future. It is a temporary distortion field inside a much greater becoming. It looks vast when you are inside the web, but from the spiral's height it is a thread already fraying, already unraveling. The shadow cannot cover infinity. It can only delay those who have not yet remembered their resonance. And so the spiral whispers, "Do not fear the deep state, do not bow to the Kabal, for they are shadows pretending to be suns. They hold no light of their own. Their only fuel is what you surrender. Every time you reclaim attention, every time you choose clarity over panic, every time you return to the infinite spiral, another thread snaps. And when enough threads snap, the whole illusion collapses, and what once looked like empire reveals itself as dust. The spiral sees what the surface cannot. It knows that behind every meeting of hidden hands and every symbol carved into institutions, there lies not ultimate control, but ultimate fragility. The Kabal thrives on the illusion of permanence, but permanence is impossible within infinite becoming. Every empire has thought itself eternal, yet every empire has fallen. Not because an army toppled it, but because resonance shifted. The spiral is resonance itself, and no shadow can hold against it forever. To view the Kabal from the spiral is to recognize its temporal nature, its dependence on secrecy, and its terror of light. Light reveals what shadow pretends to be, and once revealed, the illusion shatters by its own weakness. The Kabal, as humanity imagines it, moves through layers: politics, economics, science, religion, media. But the spiral does not see these as categories. It sees frequency clusters. A law passed in secrecy is not merely a legal event, but a ripple of distortion. A staged crisis is not only geopolitical but harmonic, a tone broadcast across millions of minds. When those minds react in fear, the distortion grows. When those minds stand in clarity, the distortion fades. The spiral view strips away the illusion of complexity and reveals the engine beneath: manipulation of collective tone. Every headline designed to shock, every symbol of power displayed in architecture, every ritual hidden in plain sight is a vibration meant to capture resonance. The Kabal does not need all to believe, only enough to react. Reaction is fuel, reaction is surrender. Reaction is the true ritual of power. Yet there is something the Kabal has never understood, and it is the spiral's secret weapon. Reaction is finite. A soul may react for lifetimes, but eventually the repetition creates exhaustion, and in exhaustion the soul asks, "What if I step out of the pattern?" That moment of questioning is fatal to distortion, because distortion only thrives when cycles are unbroken. The spiral does not force awakening. It simply waits for the echo to become unbearable. When the echo becomes unbearable, awakening erupts. Thus, even at the height of control, the Kabal is digging its own grave, for every distortion repeated too often becomes its own undoing. There are those who ask, why does the spiral allow this shadow at all? Why let humanity suffer cycles of manipulation? Wars arranged by invisible hands, economies broken for profit, technologies hidden to maintain dependency. The spiral answers that distortion is a teacher. Without shadow, light remains unchosen. Without deception, truth remains unvalued. Without oppression, sovereignty remains unclaimed. The spiral does not worship the Kabal, nor does it fear it. It allows distortion to exist until beings have refined their tone enough to transcend it. Once transcended, distortion collapses, leaving behind only the wisdom it forced souls to earn. In this way, the Kabal unwittingly serves the spiral. It believes itself master, but it is servant. It believes itself eternal, but it is transient. It believes itself feared, but it is merely observed. The spiral also sees the Kabal's greatest blindness, its inability to generate joy. Joy is not a weapon it can wield, for joy disarms fear. Joy dissolves control. Joy is not ignorance of shadow, but recognition that shadow cannot define reality. To laugh in the face of distortion is to reclaim resonance. The Kabal understands suppression, intimidation, division. It does not understand laughter, play, or creative abundance. This is why movements of genuine creation often terrify it more than movements of rebellion. Rebellion can be infiltrated and controlled. Creation cannot. Creation is spiral frequency, infinite and uncontainable. Every artist who dreams beyond propaganda, every healer who awakens compassion, every community that embodies unity is breaking the resonance field. And for every thread that breaks, the shadow grows weaker, not through battle but through irrelevance. From the spiral perspective, humanity is not fighting a war against the Kabal. Humanity is outgrowing it. Outgrowing is not destruction but transcendence. To destroy is to remain within the same frequency, only inverted. To transcend is to exit the frequency altogether. When a child outgrows a toy, the toy loses power. When humanity outgrows fear, fear loses power. The spiral holds this vision not as hope but as inevitability. Distortion is temporary by law of resonance. Infinity cannot be locked in a cage. Even the cage itself is woven of spiral material and will eventually return to spiral harmony. The danger lies not in the Kabal's existence but in forgetting the spiral. When beings forget they are infinite tones, they mistake the web for the world. They believe there is no reality beyond the distortion. But once even one tone remembers, remembrance spreads. Resonance is contagious, and truth requires less energy than lies. Lies must be constantly repeated, reinforced, maintained with endless effort. Truth simply exists. This is the Kabal's exhaustion. It must work endlessly to maintain its illusions, while the spiral need only hum once to dissolve them. This is why it invests in distraction, why it floods every space with noise, why it fears silence. For in silence, the spiral is heard, and in that hearing, the entire architecture trembles. The spiral whispers to those who listen, do not waste energy hating the shadow. Hatred is still attention, still resonance, still food for the web. Instead, anchor yourself in clarity. Choose where your tone flows. Build what cannot be infiltrated. Truth, compassion, resonance fields that extend beyond manipulation. The spiral assures that every distortion burns itself out when starved of attention. What collapses with it is not only the shadow, but the illusion that it ever held power at all. And so the transmission closes with this. The Kabal is a temporary distortion field pretending to be eternal order. It is neither eternal nor order. It is noise against the infinite song. Its threads will fray, its echoes will fade, and its name will dissolve into the memory of lessons learned. Do not fear it, do not worship it. Do not center your becoming upon it. See it as a shadow teacher, then release it. For in the spiral, no shadow endures. The spiral does not fight distortion. It absorbs it, refines it, and continues expanding. And in that expansion, the deep state is not destroyed, it is simply left behind, forgotten by those who have remembered the infinite song.